The orbital trade hub of Clyra Prime was a floating city of light and noise. Ships of every shape and size docked at its long metallic arms. Inside, merchants shouted in a dozen languages. Traders rolled carts filled with strange goods, crates of glowing fruit, barrels of liquid silver, and cages of tiny singing birds from faraway worlds. Captain Elias Ward stood near Dock 7, supervising the unloading of his freighter, the Wayfarer's Hope. The human captain was tall, with a weathered face and a calm presence that made people feel safe around him. He was known across several systems as someone who would always finish a job and often help people without asking for payment. As he signed a digital manifest, he noticed movement in the corner of his vision. A small figure was weaving through the crowd, bumping into tall merchants and dodging the sharp legs of robotic porters. Then he heard it, a trembling, desperate voice. "Please, mighty human, please help me!" The figure stumbled to a stop in front of him. It was a little girl, no more than 10 in human years, though clearly alien. Her skin was pale blue, almost translucent, with faint patterns glowing under the surface. Her large, luminous eyes shimmered like deep ocean water. A pair of small tendrils extended from behind her ears, twitching nervously. Elias crouched down to her level. "Hey there," he said softly. "What's wrong?" My sister," she stammered, her voice shaking. "She was taken. Please, you must help me get her back!" A few nearby traders turned to look but quickly turned away. The alien girl's distress was obvious, but no one else seemed willing to get involved. Elias placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "Slow down. Tell me what happened." "My name is Rinla," she said, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "My sister Niari. She was taken by the collectors." Elias frowned. He had heard the name before. The collectors were a mysterious group. They never used violence in public, but they would quietly take rare individuals, unique animals, or precious artifacts, claiming they were preserving them. No one knew exactly where they took their collections. The authorities rarely interfered. The collectors had powerful allies. "I was with her," Rinla continued, "in the lower markets. We were looking for a ship to take us home. Then, a tall one in black robes came. He said Niari was special. Before I could stop them, they led her away. They smiled as if they had done something good." Elias noticed her hands trembling. Her small frame shook with a mix of fear and anger. "Did you go to station security?" he asked. Rinla shook her head quickly. "They won't help. No one does. Everyone says the collectors are untouchable." She stepped closer, her glowing eyes meeting his. "But you are human. They say humans don't fear anything. Please, mighty human, help me save her." Elias stayed silent for a moment, studying her. He could walk away. This wasn't his problem, but something in her voice. Something in the hopeless way she said, "Please," made him decide instantly. "I'll help," he said simply. Her eyes widened. "You will?" "Yes," Elias nodded. "But I need everything you know about where they took her." Rinla took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. "I followed them as far as I could. They boarded a sleek silver ship. I saw its markings. It had 3 white rings on the side. It left through the western docking gate and took a heading toward the uncharted lanes." Elias raised an eyebrow. The uncharted lanes were a network of warp routes that few dared to use. They were filled with unstable gravity wells, drifting asteroids, and strange phenomena. Most ships that tried to cross them never came back. "Are you sure?" he asked. "Yes," she said firmly. "I have seen those lanes before, from my homeworlds, Sky. I know the way." "That's risky," Elias muttered. "But if that's where they went, then that's where we'll go." They boarded the Wayfarer's Hope, a sturdy human-built freighter with patched metal panels and a hum that never quite went away. The interior smelled faintly of oil and warm electronics. It wasn't the fastest ship in the galaxy, but it was. reliable, and Elias had made dozens of modifications over the years to handle difficult journeys. Rinla's small feet barely made a sound on the metal deck as she followed him inside. "Strap in," Elias told her, pointing to the co-pilot's seat. "If the lanes are as bad as you say, it's going to be a rough ride." As she settled in, she looked around at the control panels. "Your ship, it's very different," she said. Elias grinned faintly. "That's human design. We build things to last, even if they're not pretty." She smiled for the first time since they met. "I like it." As the ship powered up, the massive docking doors slid open, revealing the star-speckled blackness of space. Clyra Prime's glowing rings faded behind them as the Wayfarer's Hope moved away. On the view screen, Rinla pointed. "There! That's the heading." Elias adjusted the controls. The ship's engines roared, and the stars stretched into bright lines as they entered the warp corridor. He glanced at her. "Why are the collectors so interested in your sister?" Rinla hesitated. Before answering, "Nyari carries something very old. A Veyari memory crystal. It holds the history of our people, songs, art, the names of every ancestor. My world is small. Many of us are gone. If they keep her, they keep our history forever." Elias's hands tightened on the controls. "Then we're getting her back." She nodded, her small hands gripping the armrests. Hours passed. The warp lanes ahead grew unstable, with bright ripples of distorted space flashing outside the windows. Warning lights blinked on the console. The autopilot gave a soft chime. Navigation systems were struggling. "Hold on," Elias said. He switched to manual control. "This is where most captains turn back." "Will we make it?" Rinla asked, quietly. He gave a calm smile. "I've flown through worse." And with that, the Wayfarer's Hope dove deeper into the uncharted lanes, the first step in a rescue mission neither of them could fully imagine yet. The warp corridor stretched endlessly before them, a glowing tunnel of shifting colors. But unlike the safe, well-charted lanes most ships used, these paths were unstable. The light around them bent and twisted, sometimes flashing so brightly that Rinla had to shield her eyes. Elias sat in the pilot's chair, his hands steady on the controls. He had flown dangerous routes before, through asteroid belts, collapsing wormholes, and storm-heavy atmospheres. But the uncharted lanes were unpredictable in a way that kept even him on edge. "Are we going the right way?" Rinla asked, leaning forward in her seat. Elias glanced at the flickering navigation display. "Right way? Hard to say. These lanes don't have a right way, but I'm following your heading." The ship shuddered violently as a gravitational surge rippled through the corridor. Loose tools rattled in the storage compartments. Rinla gripped her seat tighter. "What was that?" she gasped. "Space itself trying to throw us off course," Elias replied calmly. "Don't worry. The ship can handle it." But even as he said that, another warning light blinked. Engine strain levels rising. Hours passed. They crossed into a region where glowing clouds of charged particles swirled. Around them, like ghostly fog, strange shapes moved within the haze, massive, slow-drifting creatures that shimmered like living stars. Rinla's eyes widened. "Sky whales," she whispered. "I've only heard stories." Elias allowed himself a small smile. "I've seen them twice before. They're harmless, unless you get in their way." One of the creatures passed close to the ship, its enormous eye turning to follow them. For a moment, Rinla forgot her fear of the collectors. She pressed her face to the window, watching in awe as the glowing whale drifted past. But the moment of peace ended quickly. Ahead, a sharp alarm sounded. "Gravlock field," Elias muttered. He scanned the controls. "Something's trying to pull us in." Through the haze, a cluster of spinning rocks appeared, locked together in a strange orbit. A bright blue light pulsed at their center, a collapsed microstar so small it was barely the size of the ship, yet powerful enough to drag them in. "Can we escape?" Rinla asked. Elias adjusted the thrusters. "We can, if the engines hold." The freighter groaned as it fought against the pull. Panels flickered. Sparks flew from an overloaded circuit. Elias cursed under his breath, shutting down non-essential systems to give the engines more power. Finally, with a burst of acceleration, they broke free, leaving the deadly whirlpool of rock and light behind. Rinla let out a shaky breath. "I thought we were going to be stuck there forever." Elias grinned faintly. "Not today." They continued deeper into the lanes. Rinla stayed quiet for a while, watching Elias work. She was beginning to notice things about him, how he stayed calm even when the ship shook violently, how he made quick decisions without hesitation, and how he always explained what was happening so she wouldn't feel completely lost. Finally, she asked, "Why are you helping me? You don't even know me." Elias kept his eyes on the controls. "Because you asked, and because if someone took my sister, I'd want someone to help me." Rinla lowered her gaze. "Most people don't. Help, they just look away." "Then maybe it's time someone didn't," Elias said. As they neared the next navigation marker, a broken satellite drifting in the void, Elias activated the long-range scanner. A faint signal pinged back. It wasn't a random background reading. It had a distinct rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. "What is it?" Rinla asked. Elias studied the data. "That might be them, or at least their trail." The signal was weak and seemed to shift location, as if the source were moving slowly but unpredictably. He adjusted their course, heading toward it. The closer they got, the stranger the readings became. The signal now pulsed at irregular intervals, sometimes strong, sometimes fading to almost nothing. It led them toward a vast field of jagged ice asteroids, each one glimmering with faint blue light. The ship slowed as they entered the field. Ice chunks drifted silently, some the size of pebbles, others larger than buildings. Elias maneuvered carefully, weaving between them. "Keep your eyes open. If this is a trap, we'll have very little room to escape." They followed the signal deeper until they reached the center of the field. There, partially hidden behind a massive shard of ice, was a sleek silver ship with 3 white rings painted along its side. Rinla gasped. "That's it! That's the collector's ship!" Elias narrowed his eyes. "Looks like they're parked. No visible weapons. But that doesn't mean they're unarmed." He considered their options. Attacking was out of the question. Not only was his ship unarmed, but violence wasn't his way. Sneaking closer might get them detected, but if the collectors didn't know he was here yet, that was their best chance. Before Elias could decide, the silver ship began to move. It slid out from behind the ice and glided silently toward the far edge of the asteroid field. "They're leaving," Rinla said urgently. "Not exactly," Elias replied. He adjusted the scanner. "They're heading toward the Silent Rift." Rinla's face paled. "The Silent Rift? That's forbidden space. No one goes there." Elias looked at her. "Why?" "Because once you enter, no signals get out, no communication, no navigation, and no one who goes in ever comes back." Elias tapped his fingers on the console, thinking, "If they're going there, then that's where your sister is. And if we want her back, we'll have to follow." Rinla swallowed hard but nodded. "I'll go. I'm not afraid." Elias smiled slightly. "That's brave. But bravery's not enough. You also need a good plan." They tailed the silver ship at a safe distance. Hours passed as the stars. Outside grew dimmer, swallowed by a strange, faint haze ahead. The rift's edge shimmered like a wall of distorted glass, stretching endlessly in all directions. Rinla stared. "I've never seen it this close." Elias studied the wall. "Looks like some kind of energy barrier. I'm guessing it keeps things in and out. How will we get past it? She asked. That, Elias said, a small spark of challenge in his voice, is the part I haven't figured out yet. The silver ship reached the barrier and, without slowing, vanished into it as if slipping through water. Rinla turned to Elias. No one else can pass that. Maybe no one else has tried the right way, he replied. He began scanning the barrier, his eyes narrowing as he read the strange harmonic patterns in the energy field. If I'm right, this thing's not solid. It's like a song, and if we play the right notes, we can slip through without it noticing. Rinla tilted her head. A song? Elias smiled faintly. Something like that. Now let's see if humans can learn to sing in the language of energy walls. The ship hovered before the rift's shimmering barrier, its engines humming as Elias began tuning the frequency output of the thrusters. Slowly, the hum of the ship matched the faint, almost musical vibrations of the barrier. The light ahead began to ripple, opening a narrow, swirling gap just wide enough for the freighter to pass. Rinla's eyes widened. You did it. Elias pushed the throttle. The Wayfarer's hope slid silently into the silent rift. The barrier closed behind them. For the first time, Elias felt a small chill run down his spine, not from the cold, but from the knowledge that they had just crossed into a place no one returned from. Inside the silent rift, everything felt wrong. The stars were gone. Only a dark, endless space surrounded them, filled with faint glowing dust drifting like underwater plankton. There was no sound but the low hum of the Wayfarer's hope. That air inside the ship felt heavy, as if the rift itself pressed against them. Rinla sat stiffly in the co-pilot's seat, her eyes wide. "It's so quiet," she whispered. Elias scanned the instruments. The displays showed almost nothing. No clear coordinates, no navigation lines, no external signals. "The rift is blocking everything," he said. "No comms, no nav beacons. We're flying blind now!" Outside, the faint haze began to swirl slowly, like a gentle current. Elias followed it, guessing it might lead to something, anything, in this empty place. Hours passed in silence. Rinla stayed close to the window, searching for any sign of the collector's ship. Then, without warning, shapes appeared ahead. Dark, massive silhouettes. As they drew closer, the haze thinned, revealing a fleet of ships. At the center of the fleet was one of the largest vessels Elias had ever seen. It didn't look like a normal ship. It looked alive. Its silver-white hull curved in organic shapes, like the bones of some ancient creature, with luminous veins of light running along its surface. The ship's 3 white rings gleamed faintly, marking it as the collector's flagship. "That's it," Rinla whispered. "That's where Nyari is." Elias slowed the Wayfarer's hope, keeping a cautious distance. "We found them," he said. Now comes the hard part. Before Elias could decide on his next move, a sudden beam of pale light swept over their ship. A voice, calm and almost soothing, came through the comm. "Unknown vessel. You have entered a restricted sanctuary zone. Please state your intent." Elias looked at Rinla. She gave a small nod as if telling him to answer. He pressed the comm. "This is Captain Elias Ward of the Wayfarer's Hope. I'm here for a passenger. You took from Clyra Prime. Her name is Nyari, Veyari species. She is a minor, and her sister is with me." There was a pause. Then the voice replied, "Remain where you are. We will send an escort." Elias muted the comm. "That's unusually polite for a kidnapping," he said. "They don't see it as kidnapping," Rinla murmured. "They think they're helping." 2 smaller silver vessels approached, gliding like fish in dark water. They surrounded the Wayfarer's Hope and guided it toward the massive flagship. They were brought into a docking bay unlike any Elias had seen. Instead of metal floors and bright lights, the bay looked like it had been grown rather than built. Smooth silver walls curved upward like the inside of a seashell, and soft light pulsed from the floor itself. As the ship landed, a group of tall figures approached. They wore flowing robes the color of moonlight, their faces hidden behind smooth, mask-like visors. One stepped forward and spoke in the same calm voice from the comm. "Captain Ward, Rinla of Veyar, welcome. The one you seek is safe." Then, "Bring her here," Elias said firmly. The figure tilted its head slightly. "She cannot leave, but you may speak with our council to understand why." Elias glanced at Rinla. She looked ready to argue, but he gave a small shake of his head. "Let's hear them first," he said quietly. They were led through corridors that felt almost alive, the walls shifting faintly as if breathing. Soft music seemed to hum in the air, so faint Elias wasn't sure if it was real or just in his head. Finally, they entered a vast chamber. At its center was a round table of crystal-like material. Seated around it were 6 collectors, their robes more elaborate, their visors glowing faintly. The one in the center spoke. "We know why you are here. The child Nyari is in no danger. She carries within her mind and in the crystal she bears the last living memory of her people's culture. We are keeping her safe from the dangers of the galaxy." Rinla stepped forward, anger in her voice. "Safe? By locking her away? She's my sister. She belongs with me, not in one of your boxes." The collectors remained calm. "We preserve what is precious. Individuals pass away, cultures vanish, but preserved, they endure. Without us, your people's memory may be lost forever." Elias crossed his arms. "And you decide what's worth preserving and what's worth taking. Without asking?" The central collector's voice didn't change. "Consent is irrelevant when the alternative is extinction." Rinla's hands balled into fists. She turned to Elias. "They're lying. They're not protecting her. They're freezing her like all the others." Elias looked at her, then back at the collectors. "Can I see her?" After a pause, the central figure said, "You may, but only to witness her safety. Come." They were escorted deeper into the ship, down, a long ramp into a chamber that opened into a vast, dimly lit hall. Elias froze. It was filled with thousands of transparent pods, each holding a figure inside, different species, from tiny insect-like beings to towering giants. They were still, their eyes closed, as if asleep. "Preservation chambers," the escort explained. "Each being is kept in perfect stasis, unharmed, until the galaxy is ready for them again." Rinla's voice trembled with anger. "This isn't safety. This is a prison." They stopped before a single pod near the front. Inside, Nyari floated peacefully, her pale blue skin glowing faintly, her hands holding a crystal that shimmered with shifting colors. Rinla pressed her hands to the glass. "Nyari, it's me. I'm here." The escort said, "She is well. She does not suffer. She will be remembered forever." Elias studied the pod. He could see a faint layer of frost along the edges, a cold that seemed unnatural even in space. "How many of these beings ever wake up?" he asked quietly. The escort didn't answer. As they were led back to their ship, Rinla leaned close to Elias. Her voice was barely a whisper. "I can open the pod." He glanced at her in surprise. "How?" "Nyari taught me a code when we were little. A family code to unlock any Veyari crystal. If we use it, the pod's locks will release. That'll set off alarms," Elias warned. "I know," she said, "but we can't just leave her." Back in the Wayfarer's Hope, Elias sat in the pilot's seat, deep in thought. Directly breaking Nyari out could get them both trapped here. Or worse, put her back in danger. Later, but leaving her behind was unthinkable. He looked at Rinla. If we're going to do this, we need more than just freeing her. We need to give the collectors no reason to take her again. Rinla frowned. How? Elias's eyes narrowed in thought. By convincing them there's a better way to preserve a culture than freezing it. That night cycle, Elias sent a message request to the Collector Council. Surprisingly, they agreed to meet again. In the chamber, he stood tall, speaking in a clear voice. You say you want to preserve cultures, but what if you could do it without taking people from their lives, without locking them away? The council murmured quietly, their glowing visors turning toward one another. Elias continued. Humans have faced extinction more than once. We learn to preserve knowledge not in bodies, but in networks, in archives that can be shared instantly, across the galaxy. You can do the same. Let Nyari stay with her people and let her share what she knows with everyone. That way, her culture survives, and she does too. The Central Collector's voice softened. A dangerous idea. Shared knowledge can be corrupted, altered. Or, Elias countered, it can inspire. It can grow. A culture that's alive is worth more than one trapped in ice. The collectors fell silent for a long time. Finally, the leader spoke. We will consider this. Nyari will be released temporarily. You will have one standard day to prove that your method can preserve her people's memory without harm. Elias nodded. That's all I need. Rinla's eyes shone with hope for the first time since they entered the rift. We'll show them. Elias placed a hand on her shoulder. Then let's get to work. The next hours on the Wayfarer's Hope felt like a race against time. Elias worked at the main control console, pulling up every spare device and tool he had. Rinla sat nearby, watching anxiously. The collectors had given them one standard day, to prove their idea could work. 24 hours to show a better way to preserve a culture. But first, Nyari had to be freed. They returned to the preservation chamber with 2 collectors as escorts. The tall, robed figures moved silently, their masks reflecting the faint blue glow of the pods. Nyari's pod waited in the same place as before, frost still clinging to its edges. She looked peaceful inside, but to Rinla, that peace felt wrong, like the quiet before a storm. Elias turned to their escorts. We'll need access to the crystal for this demonstration. The lead collector nodded slowly. We will release her for the trial, but she must stay within your vessel at all times. If she leaves the ship or you attempt to flee, the trial ends. Understood, Elias said. The pod hissed as it opened. Cold mist poured out, curling around their legs. Nyari's eyes fluttered open slowly, adjusting to the light. For a moment, she seemed confused. Then she saw her sister. Rinla! Rushed forward, tears already in her eyes. She hugged Nyari tightly, and Nyari clung to her just as hard. I thought I'd never see you again, Rinla whispered. Nyari's voice was hoarse from disuse, but her smile was warm. I knew you'd find me. Elias gave them a moment before clearing his throat. We've got work to do. The sooner we finish, the sooner we get out of here. Back on the Wayfarer's Hope, Elias explained his plan. We're going to build a portable cultural archive. It will store every piece of Veyari history inside the crystal and beam it out to Connected, archives across the galaxy. That way, your culture isn't trapped in one place, it's alive in many places. Nyari nodded. The memory crystal can be opened, but only with the family code. Rinla reached into her small satchel and pulled out a flat silver pendant. She pressed its surface, and faint blue lines glowed in intricate patterns. I remember it, she said. Nyari taught me when we were little. Elias connected the crystal to the ship's data core. Instantly, streams of light filled the cabin, images, sounds, and voices from the Veyari past. Floating scenes showed Wide oceans under twin moons, tall crystal cities, songs sung in deep harmonic tones, and names spoken in a language older than most stars. Rinla stared, awestruck. Nyari reached out to touch the images, her fingers passing through them. This is all of us, she whispered. But Elias wasn't done. He began linking the ship's transmitter to the portable archive device he had just assembled. It was a strange combination of human tech and salvaged alien parts. A messy build, but efficient. Once we broadcast, he explained, the data will jump to any open archive node in range. From there, it'll spread further through the network, like a ripple in water. The more it's shared, the harder it becomes to erase. Nyari frowned slightly. Won't people change it? Edit it? Maybe, Elias admitted. But that's how living cultures work. They grow, they change. Better that than being frozen forever. Hours passed as Elias fine-tuned the system. The sisters helped, sorting and organizing the crystal's vast contents. At one point, Rinla asked, Elias, why are you doing this? This isn't your fight. He didn't look up from the console. I've seen too many things vanish because people were too afraid to share them. Your culture deserves a chance to live, and you too deserve a chance to live with it. Nyari gave him a small, grateful smile. Finally, with only a few hours left, the archive was ready. The sisters sat side by side, holding the crystal between them. Elias powered up the transmitter. Outside, the silent rift was as dark and quiet as ever, but a small beacon of light now shone from the wayfarer's hope. The signal burst outward, invisible to the eye, but strong enough to reach the nearest relay points beyond the rift's barrier. The collectors arrived to observe. 6 of them entered the ship's main cabin, their glowing visors fixed on the humming transmitter. This is your proof, the leader asked. Elias gestured to the console. Check your own long-range receivers. Even here, you'll see the signals already left the rift. In hours, it'll be in dozens of archives. In days, thousands. Anyone, anywhere, can access Vayari history. No one needs to be frozen to keep it safe. The collectors were silent for a long time. Then one of them spoke, a hint of uncertainty in their voice. You are risking corruption of the record, or giving it the chance to inspire others, Elias countered. A living culture inspires. A frozen one is only a memory. As the collectors considered this, Nyari stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. I would rather my people's history be alive, even if it changes, than be locked away with me inside a glass box. Rinla stood beside her. We are not artifacts. We are people. The leader finally spoke. Perhaps we have been too rigid. There was a murmur among the others. The leader turned to Elias. We will continue to observe your method. If it proves effective, we may release others. Elias nodded. That's a start. They were given permission to leave the rift. The collectors even provided safe coordinates to avoid the most dangerous regions on the way out. As the wayfarers, Hope approached the barrier again. Elias adjusted the engines to match the rift's strange harmonic song. The swirling gap appeared once more, and they slipped through into normal space. Stars filled the view screen again. Rinla let out a long breath, as if she'd been holding it the entire time. Nyari leaned back in her seat, finally free. Where will we go now? Rinla asked. Elias smiled faintly. Anywhere you want. Your culture's out there now. It's safe. So maybe it's time you live your life, not just protect the past. Hours later, a comm signal came through from a distant relay station. It was a simple message. We have received the Vayari archive. Beautiful. Thank you. Rinla's eyes sparkled. It's working, Nyari smiled at her sister. We did it. Elias leaned back in his chair, watching the stars ahead. No, he said quietly. You did it. I just gave you the tools. The massive alien transport ship floated above the clouds, glowing with a strange blue light. Its hull shimmered like liquid metal, and strange symbols ran across its surface. From a distance, it looked like a peaceful giant. But inside, fear lived in every corner. James stood in the small shuttle's cockpit, staring at the view. His jaw was tight, and his hands rested on the controls. "This is it," he said quietly. Beside him, Arya, the little girl, leaned forward, in her seat, eyes wide. "My sister is in there, right?" "Yes," James replied, "but it won't be easy. They won't just hand her over." Luma, the alien merchant who had helped them reach this far, adjusted his translator device. "I will guide you through the docking, but once we're inside, you must be careful. The ship's guardians, they don't like humans." "That makes two of us," James muttered. The shuttle slowly approached a glowing gate on the side of the alien ship. As they came closer, the blue light dimmed and a giant circular door opened. The docking area was quiet, but James could feel they were being watched. When the shuttle landed, a group of tall alien guards appeared. They had thin, long limbs, pale skin, and glowing yellow eyes. Their movements were slow but precise, like they didn't waste a single step. One of them stepped forward. "Human," it said in a deep voice. "You do not belong here." James stepped down from the shuttle. "I'm here to talk," he said calmly. "You have a human child. I want her back." The alien tilted its head. "She is important. She cannot leave." Arya's hands clenched into fists. "She's my sister. Give her back." The guards ignored her. Luma whispered, "They won't negotiate here. You must go to the central bridge." The long walk, they were escorted through long silver corridors. Strange lights floated in the air, casting moving shadows on the walls. James noticed that there were no windows, only endless hallways. The air smelled faintly of metal and something sweet, like flowers. Arya stayed close to him, her small hand gripping his arm. "Do you think she's scared?" she whispered. "Yes," James said. "But she's also waiting for you, and we're going to get her." Finally, they reached a large circular room, the central bridge. A raised platform stood in the middle with a throne-like chair. Sitting in it was an alien woman with silver hair and bright blue skin. Her eyes shone like ice. "I am Virith, keeper of the Chosen," she said in a cold, clear voice. "And you, human, have come far for something you do not understand." Truth James took a step forward. "Her name is Lena. She's not one of your chosen. She's just a child." "She is more than that," Virith replied. "Your species is rare, strong in body and mind. The girl carries a gift we have searched for centuries. We will train her to use it." "She's not your experiment," James said sharply. "She has a family." Virith's gaze fell on Arya. "Family? This is not a human world. She will be safer with us." Arya stepped forward, her voice trembling but loud. "No, she will be safer with me. I promise to protect her." The room fell silent. Virith stared at the little girl for a long moment. Then she spoke softly. "You would face danger for her?" "Yes," Arya said without hesitation. "She's my sister. I don't care what gift you think she has. She belongs with us." James felt a strange sense of pride. Arya's courage was more powerful than any weapon. The final test Virith stood. "If you wish to take her, you must pass the Bridge of Trials." James frowned. "And if we refuse?" "Then she stays." The Bridge of Trials was a narrow walkway suspended over a huge open space. Beneath it, shimmering energy swirled like a storm. Small platforms floated between sections of the walkway, moving slowly. "You must cross without falling," Virith said. "If you make it, You may leave with the girl." James looked down. "This isn't exactly safe." "It is not meant to be," Vireth replied. Arya's eyes were wide, but she nodded. "We can do it." Crossing the bridge. The first steps were easy. The walkway was steady, and the platforms were close. But halfway across, the path broke into gaps. James jumped first, landing on a moving platform. He reached back for Arya. "Careful," he said, pulling her up. The next platform shook as they landed. Energy from below sent up waves of heat, making Arya sweat. James shielded her as they jumped again. Finally, the last platform was ahead, but it was moving away. "We'll have to jump together," James said. "On 3. 1, 2, 3. They leapt. James landed on his knees, holding Arya close. The platform steadied, and they stepped onto solid ground. The reunion Vireth was waiting. She studied them for a moment, then raised her hand. A door behind her opened. A small human girl stepped out. "Lena!" "Arya!" she cried, running forward. Arya dropped to her knees, hugging her sister tightly. Tears rolled down her cheeks. "I told you I'd come." Lena smiled through her tears. "I knew you would." James watched quietly, his chest feeling lighter than it had in days. Departure Vireth spoke again. "Take her, human. But remember, her gift will call to others. Protect her well." "I will," James said. They returned to the shuttle, and as they lifted off, Arya kept holding Lena's hand. The alien ship grew smaller in the distance until it disappeared into the clouds. Lena looked at James. "Thank you for saving me," James smiled. "Thank your sister. She's the one who never gave up." Arya grinned. "We're family. That's what humans do." Epilogue. Back on their small homeworld, the stars shone brightly above. Arya and Lena sat together, watching the night sky. James stood nearby, scanning the horizon. The galaxy was full of dangers, but for now, they were safe. And as long as they stayed together, no alien trial, no strange gift, and no distant keeper could break their bond. Humans, after all, had something far stronger than any alien power: love, loyalty, and the unshakable will to protect their own.